Hey, you guys, we're back after a 2-week layoff. It's great to be here recording again. Looking forward to maybe seeing some of you guys tonight or tomorrow morning. We are looking at a book called Win the Day. We're entering into the second half of the book, and today's section is entering a new habit called Fly the Kite. So this is habit number 4. And, you know, we had Eat the Frog and a couple other ones, but once you hear the story behind this Fly the Kite, it makes sense. And it's a story that starts like this. In 1848, over the Niagara Falls, they were looking for a way to build a suspension bridge. So in order to do that, these guys got together, all the engineers and everything, and the best thing they could come up with, this is no joke, was to fly a kite across the gorge with a string attached to it so they could get the string to the other side. Well, you got to think about that and go, why would they want a string to the other side? Well, they thought about using like a harpoon gun, and they realized that couldn't reach that far. You know, in 1848, they didn't have the technology we did today. So they started with a contest for this, and the winning prize was $10. Now, in 1848, $10 was probably like a couple $100 today. But to a 15-year-old kid in 1848, that was a lot of money. So a guy named Homan Walsh took on the challenge with hundreds of other kids, and his kite made it across. In fact, he failed doing it the first time. He had to take a ferry, go around, get the kite, and the ferry didn't come back for 2 weeks. He was stuck on the other side for 2 weeks, came back, did it again. This time he got the string over. And then what did they do with that string? Well, with that string, they tied another little rope to it. And from the little rope, they tied a big rope. And from the big rope, they tied a big cable and were able to winch it across. And this was the start of the first suspension bridge over Niagara Falls. So it all started with a young boy doing something very small to make that work. The first slide we're going to look at today is from Zechariah 4:7. It says this, do not despise the small things, the small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin, to see the plumb line in Zerubbabel's hand. So in other words, God takes great pride. He's excited, just like a parent, when he sees us start something. Okay, now he wants to see us finish it as well, but he gets excited at the beginnings, even if it is small. You know, we celebrate when our kids are little and they do something small, like their first step, or their first time we drop them off at Sunday school or real school, and they're not crying. You know, there's little wins, little victories. So God delights just like that. And it says that the Israelites hadn't even broken ground on the temple yet, and God was rejoicing in their accomplishment. Just like a father rejoicing in small steps, God rejoices in our small acts of kindness as well. So remember this, how we do anything is how we'll do everything. Okay, if you do something small that's good, okay, chances are when you get to the responsibility of doing something big, you're going to do good as well. But if you're not making little sacrifices right now, little ones, you're not ready to take on bigger accomplishments. If you aren't taking little risks right now towards your future, you probably aren't going to take the big risks when the time comes. So like it says here in Zechariah, it says, don't despise small beginnings. It says that you got to start small. Little by little, bad habits are broken. Little by little, good habits are built. And little by little, dreams become reality, but it has to start small. So from 1964 to 1975, there was a coach that his team and he as a coach dominated the college basketball landscape. His name was John Wood, and most of you guys have heard of him. He won 10 championships from 1964 to 1975. 7 were in a row. Can you imagine that today? I mean, if you win 2 championships in a row right now in any sport, you're a dynasty. What did 7 in a row look like? I mean, that's crazy. He 6 times he was the basketball coach of the year. Well, John Wooden was a good Christian man, and he had this 7-point creed that we're going to put up on the screen right now. And his creed was this. First one was be true to yourself. The second one is make each day a masterpiece. The third one is help others. The fourth one is drink deeply from good books each day. And he says especially the Bible. The fifth one is make friendship a fine art. In other words, don't take friendships for granted. Number 6 was build a shelter against a rainy day. And then he says in parentheses, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. You guys have heard that. Number 7 is pray for guidance and give thanks for your blessings every day. This is what made John Wooden a success. This is what he instilled in his players. These things: be true to yourself. Make each day count. Help others. Read great books, especially the Bible. Be good friends with people. Okay, prepare for whatever you're going to do in life, and then pray for guidance. Have a Heavenly Father that you can count on and lean into. You see, all of us want to be successful, but not all of us know what it takes to achieve success. We don't know when we've gotten there. So if you don't have it defined, how do you know when you're actually going to hit the target? So success is this. I've got a couple of things of what success is. Here's a slide. It says, success is doing the best you can with what you have, where you are. And comparing ourselves with everyone else doesn't really make sense. Are you being the best version of yourself that you can be? So success is also this. Success is when those who know you respect you the most. Okay? When those who know you respect you more than anybody else. So what is the definition of success? Well, you've got a lot of different kind of ways you can be successful: spiritually, relationally, financially, professionally. How do you know when you've reached where you want to be in all of those areas? But most of us don't ever reach a level of success that we want to because we don't know what success looks like. We've never taken the time to look at it, to write it down. What are our goals? What do we want to reach? What do we want to be in life? What's going to make me successful might look different for you. Your version of success is definitely going to be different from my version. So we want to kind of now shift into winning the day and making today your masterpiece. Okay, if we're going to be successful, each day has to be successful. And to have a day that's successful, it's going to start with little steps, right? Okay, so God, when he created us, he created a masterpiece. Paul talks about that. You're God's workmanship. You're his masterpiece. But we also know that God created a masterpiece when he created the universe and the earth and all the things that live in it. And it said on day 6, he sort of exceeded his own expectations, if that's even possible. And he said, behold, it was good. This is all very good. And we all know that the world and our days and everything can kind of go sideways. Things can start unraveling, but we know that God has created the days to be good. He's created our days to be masterpieces. And if you look at it with this kind of sense of awe and wonder that you've been given another chance, another day to live, to breathe, to make a difference in people's lives, you can make it a masterpiece. Remember, there's no ordinary people, there's no ordinary things, and there should be no ordinary days. If somebody asks you, how was your day? If you answer with something like this, same old, not much, another day at the office. Okay, what does that say to God? That means, hey, God, thanks, but, another boring day. Okay, you did not win that day. Okay, you need to maximize every single day and every single breath that God has given us. That's easier said than done. I realize that because we take it for granted that we're going to wake up tomorrow morning when we may not. Albert Einstein said this. It says there's 2 ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle, and the other is though everything is a miracle. So how do you live your life? Nothing's a miracle? Okay, this is just all how it's supposed to be? Or everything is a miracle? Wow, look at that. Did you see that? Man, what a great thing that guy did. Whatever it is, you walk through life with a sense of awe and wonder. Remember, God now is kind of hovering. Remember in the Old Testament, in Genesis, they say he kind of hovered. The Spirit of God hovered over his creation, before he got started. And it was chaos. Then it's chaos now. But just know that God can make something special even out of chaos, even out of bad days that we're having. God's still there. He's still hovering, and he's still making a difference in helping us make a masterpiece of those days. So the best way to make every day a masterpiece is look at it as a miracle. Today is a miracle. In other words, we should be very thankful. I think it comes down to that. We should be very, very thankful about every day that we have, about every breath that we have, about every friendship that we have, about the job that we are in, whether we love it or not. Okay, doesn't matter. God's given us the blessings of being able to provide for those that we love. So one way to make your day a masterpiece is to sweat the small stuff. Okay, now you've all heard the book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, because it's all small stuff. Okay, that was a famous book back in the 90s. And it is, we shouldn't be stressing, and that's what that book's talking about. But we should also be paying attention to details in our lives if we are going to make today a success, and if we're going to make today a masterpiece. When John Wooden, who we talked about earlier, the coach for the UCLA Bruins back in the 60s and 70s, he had a basketball player by the name of Bill Walton, who's a famous Hall of Famer, went on to play for the Celtics and win some titles there, and now he's an announcer for ESPN. But Bill Walton said when John Wooden would walk into the practice the first day, he'd say, gentlemen, I'm going to teach you today how to put on your shoes and socks. And he says, and all of these All-American basketball players would look at him like, you're crazy, old man. Like, we know how to put on our shoes and socks. And he would go on to teach them no folds, no wrinkles, no creases of any kind. He'd teach them how to properly lace their shoes. He would teach these grown men, 18 to 22-year-old men, how to tuck their shirts in properly, how to tie a knot, how to tie it properly of your shorts to make sure that they didn't fall down and they didn't wrinkle up your jersey. And his thinking was this, we asked, why would he do this? My high school coach actually did this exact same thing, but I didn't know it at the time that he was a big follower of John Wooden. It comes down to this, that if you do anything well, you're going to do everything well. If you pay attention to the small details of getting dressed for practice, you're going to pay attention to the small details of practice. When you're paying attention to the small details in practice, it's going to carry over into the small details for success, winning games. And winning games led to winning championships. 10 years in an 11-year span, they won championships. There's something to what he was talking about, paying attention to the small details. God actually loves small details. And I had never really thought about this until I started reading this chapter. But if you look at Exodus, there are 9 chapters in Exodus that are all specifically pointing towards the details of how God wanted his tabernacle to look. 9 chapters. I know all of you have run into those when you're doing the Bible in a year and you're going, oh my gosh, how is this helping me? And when I read the Bible, I want to know how it's going to help me. But what this does now, when I read this, this shows me God cares about the small stuff. God cares about the small details in our lives. Remember the parable of the talents that we talked about? This was a couple weeks ago, back before we went on break, that Jesus said this, if you're faithful in the small things, you will be faithful in the larger ones. Just like the guy flying the kite, it starts small. Start small that it can get big. You have to be faithful in the small things. The next slide's Colossians 3:23. It says this. It says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord and not for humans. So whatever you do, that is, how you do anything is how you're going to do everything. It's the same thing. Anything you do, no matter how big or no matter how small it is. There was a performance coach in Los Angeles who wanted to watch Kobe Bryant work out one time. He'd been working with high-end athletes for 15 years, Olympic athletes, professional athletes, and he thought, hey, I want to check out what this guy's doing. So somehow he managed to contact Kobe. And Kobe said, yeah, meet me at the gym tomorrow at 4. And he said, that's 4 a.m., not p.m. So the coach the performance coach wanting to impress Kobe got there a little bit early. And he got there about 3:30, and Kobe was already in a full sweat into his workout already. And this guy couldn't believe it. And after watching Kobe work out for a while, he said this. He said, why do you have such a very basic and boring workout? Like, how can you be as successful as you are with just doing the basics? And Kobe said, why do you think I'm the best in the world? He said, because I don't get bored with the basics. And this guy had met Kobe at a basketball camp, and everything Kobe had been teaching the kids to do, he was doing. It was almost like the exact same practice that Kobe Bryant, the world's best basketball player at the time, was doing. And this is what's called the Mamba mentality. You guys may have heard this before, Mamba mentality. And it means this. It's going to be on the screen here. It says, it's a quest to be better today than you were yesterday. That's it. That's Mamba mentality. Are you better today than you were yesterday? Okay, that's making today a masterpiece because you're making it better. It's going to get even better. So in conclusion, I want to say this. I want to encourage you to find your sweet spot in life. Okay, what is your sweet spot? Your honey spot? I've heard it called that. It's this. It's the place where God's God-given gifts that you have meet your God-given passions. Okay, somehow those two have connected. What are you passionate about? What are you gifted about? My dad used to say, find something that you love to do and find somebody crazy enough to pay you to do it. Okay, and that's what I have figured out in this life. I love doing this. I love working with men. I love working with kids. I love working with sports. Somehow I've landed in my sweet spot here. Thanks to the Lord, for putting me in this position. But I want to encourage you to do that, and you may not find your ideal job right at first, okay? But people who end up in a successful job that they love are usually the ones who have stuck it out in jobs that they've hated and bosses that they didn't really care for. But they put in that work, they did what Colossians 3:23 was talking about. Whatever you do, in other words, wherever you are, whatever kind of job you have, work at it with all your heart, okay? God's going to reward that. Be faithful with the small things, and he's going to give you much bigger things, much bigger responsibilities that are going to lead to the kind of successful life that you want. So today, my challenge to you is go make today your masterpiece. Pay attention to the small stuff. God's going to bless you with some bigger things.